Okay.
Okay. So we have in Zanesville the Licking River and the Muskingum River that come together, and built over top of that is the Y Bridge. And we're kind of known for that. And that's what I think of when I think of my town, is how important the rivers were, and the Indians, the Native Americans that were there and that named our town. And I have fond memories of the bridge. Of course, it's you live in a town, you're like, you're just a
Yeah.
bridge.
Yes.
But the saying is, it's the only place where you can go to the middle of the bridge and turn left or right, middle of every bridge, or the only time you can cross a bridge and remain on the same side of the river,
Oh yeah.
cutesy
Yeah.
kinds of things like that.
Oh, that's fun.
And in our town, I don't know if you're familiar with Zanesville, but Ebenezer Zane was who our town was named after. And he's the guy that built the road from West Virginia to Ohio and then eventually to Kentucky.
Oh.
And so for all of my childhood, I don't know when it stopped, but we had a big to-do in our town called Zane's Trace Commemoration. It was called Zane's Trace, the road originally.
Yeah.
And there was a parade. It was a whole weekend of food and music and games and all this. And it was a big deal. And we were never not there.
Yeah.
We were there all weekend, tromping around, seeing people eating junk food. The parade was a big deal, sitting on the banks of the river, watching the fireworks. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. How would you describe Appalachians to outsiders?
That I don't know. My first thought is they're old people. I know that's not really true, but I love the ones that are.
Well, when you left home, did you ever have an interaction with anyone who, a lot of people don't consider Eastern Ohio Appalachian, so you may not have had that experience, but.
Well, I moved to Western New York to work.
Oh, okay.
And I remember somebody saying to me, "Are you from Texas?" And I said, "No, why would you think that?" And they said, "Your accent." And I said, "Really? I have an accent?" I didn't realize that. I went to OU for college. And so I went down to Athens, which is just more
right there.
Appalachians.
Right.
Except for the students.
Yeah.
But I do remember people saying, "You have an accent." And I didn't notice that. Now in Western New York, that was its own Appalachia.
Yes, it is.
And its own culture. So I didn't really feel that left out, because these people were different yet than I was.
Yes.
And then after I left there, I went to North Carolina, which is another whole culture. So exactly. I knew I was jumping into the middle of something different.
Yes.
And those people had an accent.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, you are highly educated. Are you first generation college in your family?
No? I'm not.
Wow, that's great, because I am. But I'm wondering what attitudes you ran into for spending so many years in college. Did you have anyone that felt like that maybe that was a waste of time?
I don't think so. My grandpa was the oldest of his family, his siblings, and he was born in 1918, and he graduated high school, which was very unusual.
Right.
And they had a farm. And most of the time, if you had a farm, the older boy didn't even come close to finishing school. Well, all of his siblings, the rest of his siblings, 4 others, none of them finished school.
Wow.
So I think my grandpa sort of set the precedent for education. And in high school, it wasn't even talked about. It wasn't even a question. I just knew I was going.
Yeah.
I was a good student, and my dad didn't even have a discussion. It was just like, where are you going to go?
Right.
And so my grandparents, both sets, were very supportive of my education.
I love it.
I don't know. It never even crossed anybody's mind, I don't think.
What brought you to Dayton?
God is the short version. But the job, really.
Yeah.
I was living in North Carolina, and I felt really like I needed to be back closer to my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
All of my family's still in Zanesville, every last one of them.
Wow.
And I was missing out on my nieces and nephews and all those things. And my grandparents were so important to me. I just knew they weren't going to live forever. and I started looking for a job, and I came to Sinclair. Little did I know my dad was going to die. We had no idea that I was coming home really
For
to be with
him.
my dad.
Wow.
And then, of course, to take care of my grandparents. My dad was an only child. So when he was gone, then I was the oldest and the one responsible to take care of them with my younger sister. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I got here.
You know, I'm trying to, what would you say are some of the strengths of the Appalachian culture or the Appalachian people?
I don't know. I feel like for me, and I've worked with a few, I've been doing a project just like this with people who are about 80, 90 years old in Appalachian. And I feel like they're really good storytellers.
Yeah.
And I think that's how the world just passes to them, passes, through them, as through telling stories. And I couldn't love a storyteller anymore.
Yeah.
I do think there's some, I want to say some shame that they carry a lot of times. And I feel horrible about that. I just hate that. But when they are with a person or a group, a community where they feel confident, where they feel accepted, I love how sort of unashamed they are. They're just like, this is me, this is authentic, this is real. I love that sort of free spirit about them, at least in the ones that I've interacted with.
Yes, I totally. Oh, Heidi, I relate so much to every single thing you said. I could tell the stories right back at you. It's just, it's beautiful, and it's heritage, and it's richness that I'm afraid that most of the United States and the world has no clue of. But just real people.
One of the things that I think about, and I know it's not specific to Appalachia necessarily, is food. And I spent most of my time with my grandma in the kitchen. And that is so critical to me. And I think it's critical to building relationships. When I was with my great aunts and uncles, we were always seated at the kitchen table and had been either cooking and eating or going out to eat and coming home and hanging out together. And I think about that too, just the process of cooking and building that relationship over whatever it is, the stove, the fire, the kitchen, of some sort. That I don't think a lot of people today are really doing that.
Yes, I totally agree. Just a side note, my granny told me when I was 15 that I'd never get a man because I couldn't make a good biscuit. I still can't, but I married a city boy. He doesn't know the difference.
He doesn't care about a biscuit.
Oh, Heidi, do you have anything else you'd like to add to this?
I'm trying to think. I took some notes. What did I not say? I was thinking about in Coshocton, where my grandparents were from, at the Roscoe Village. I don't know if you've been to Roscoe.
I've heard of Roscoe.
An old village. Every year they had a dulcimer festival. And my dad being, into that, and my grandparents, my uncles, everybody, they went. And we watched all these different kinds of people play all these different kinds of dulcimers. And when I was a very young kid, my dad had a dulcimer. And as I said, we're not really musically gifted, but he would play, and I would sit on the edge of his chair, my brother on one side and me on the other. And he would play Dear Aunt Rhody. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
And that was about all he could play, I think. But it didn't matter. And years later, when the dulcimer to me was just some old, fogey kind of instrument. I was in North Carolina, and I learned where you could take dulcimer lessons. And I was like, And of course, the only song I knew was Dear Aunt Rhody. And it wasn't too long into the lessons when they started to play it. And I was so excited. I called my dad and I said, I'm taking these lessons. I was using a cardboard dulcimer for the first time. And he said, I want to give you my dulcimer. He wasn't playing it. And we had taken it to a music shop and had it fixed up so that I could play it. And so now I have it. I still can only play Aunt Rhody probably, but that feels like Appalachia to me.
Yes, that's beautiful.
And mushroom hunting with my grandpa. Yes. I don't even like mushrooms, but it didn't matter. It was about the hunt,
Yes.
And watching my grandma fry them and soak them in the salt water and the dandelion greens and that kind of thing.
Yes.
That, feels sort of like home.
Mhm.
You know, and I just long for information about when they were young and little, growing up.
Mhm.
And I think that's why I like to hang out with old people too, you know, still
Yes.
today. My
Yeah.
grandparents are gone. And, you know, I think that's why I spend so much time with the older people.
Yes.
So,
Yes. That's beautiful. I relate so much to all of this.
well,
Well,
we knew
Heidi,
that when we first met.
yes, when we first met, we connected right away, and I
Yeah,
can't wait for you to interview my mom. I want to have all of that.
I know. That's
Oh, that's
exciting.
good. That's good. Well, thank you for sharing your time with me. It's been very enjoyable for me, and I hope that other people who view it feel the same way, but this was sweet.
Good, good. I'm
Thank
glad.
you.